Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar for Smarter Manufacturing with MYOB Advanced. I'm James Rodder from Leverage Technologies, and I also have Dean West on the line.
Morning.
Good morning, Dean. Our technical and subject matter expert for manufacturing, who will be taking you through some of the capabilities of MYOB Advanced later in today's session. Manufacturing is a very varied and complex industry, and what we're hoping to do today is allow you to discover and understand how leverage technologies can simplify your life using technology such as MYOB Advanced. You are more than welcome to ask questions throughout the webinar today. Please use the Q&A panel that's available within Zoom. And at the end of this session, we will answer them to the best of our ability. So please, we like to answer your questions. So please, if you have any questions regarding manufacturing for MYOB Advanced, leverage technologies, any insights, we'll be more than happy to answer them at the end of this session. Okay, so manufacturing in Australia. The last 15 or 18 months have been extraordinary, and I would say, manufacturing in Australia has a variety of impacts, had been impacted in a variety of ways due to that. Some of it has brought forward opportunity, some has brought forward challenges when it comes to supply chains, imports, exports, those sort of things. So, it has been challenging, but, some industries, some micro verticals within manufacturing has done extremely well. In Australia, it's, when we talk about manufacturing, it's quite varied. There's different types of manufacturing or micro verticals within manufacturing to address a number of areas of the market, which makes, putting systems and solutions in place sometimes quite challenging. But, we're here today to give you a choice or give you a way forward on addressing that complexity. So as I mentioned earlier, the footprint within Australia when it comes to manufacturing is quite varied. You can be a small manufacturer or small and discrete, or, building large value items or products, or you could be large, doing large volumes of manufactured products, and that's all within the Australian market. Within the Australian market, those manufacturers are normally quite sophisticated in producing quite complex goods, which is highly dependent on domain knowledge in that industry. Using years and years of research and development and, expertise, it's available. You've built out a suite of products, techniques unique to yourselves, very unique, that has made you successful. Some of that has come down to the utilization of technology. Most areas of the market have technology built in, and manufacturing is not excluded from that. Very technical and highly advanced technology that can be deployed in manufacturing industries, which makes it very sophisticated and complex to manage and get the best out of that equipment and those investments that manufacturing organizations can make. When it comes to Australia, when it comes to operating Australia, the quality and safety regulations are quite strict, especially when it comes to food and beverage, chemical, when it comes to quality, when it comes to safety. Any manufacturing or any industry dealing with heavy equipment, plant and the like, the safety regulations are there that are, all for everyone's best interest, and it's for the organization to make sure that, they adhere to those regulations, which I wouldn't say is strictly unique to Australia, but it's significant in Australia. Customers, we all have them, local and foreign. The import-export market for Australia is quite significant. And when it comes to those customers, they can be varying in the demands and their expectations. And the Australian market, when it comes to manufacturing, has to be geared up to handle those demands and expectations. Another significant area of the Australian market is skilled staff. Especially at the moment with borders being locked down and the restriction of movement and alike, finding people is quite tough. If you're anything like ourselves, when we're looking for people, it is challenging, and manufacturing, it's just as difficult as what we find ourselves in. So, these are just some of the conditions that the manufacturing in Australia is like. So that just gives you a picture of how we see the manufacturing industry in Australia. Everyone will have different outlooks on this, but this is how we generally want to look at it. And today we want to take you through, what a potential solution would look like to bring your whole organization on a single platform that can address, any inefficiencies and promote growth within the organization and mitigate any challenges as part of that. So as an organization grows, matures, evolves, range of things, it can start ending up being into segmented islands, such as these silos that I've got presented here. Initially, this arrangement can be manageable. It could be a small business, and these things can be handled through people. But as your business grows and scales, becomes more diverse, it can eventually become a hindrance to growth, and then understanding the overall position and performance of the organization. Over time, these can accumulate through necessity, and the timeliness of putting something together to make sure that new strategy or tactic that the organization has come up with has something to work from. But again, it can eventually impact the performance and the future business objectives if you continue in this manner. So examples of these silos can be your workforce. When your workforce is interacting in a manufacturing setting, dealing with scheduling, timesheets, keeping their certifications and skills up to date. You could put a system or a silo in place to manage that in isolation. When it comes to your workforce, them themselves might be a body of knowledge through the years of experience that they have. How to calibrate a machine when something goes outside of spec, how do they overcome it? That could be just all in their individual's head, and all that domain knowledge or experience is just there. If someone were to move on, that gets lost, it doesn't stay with the business. So that can be a significant risk. Paperwork, spreadsheets, we all have them, on people's desktops or, printed copies, they can be out there. And again, that could be a significant concern that you have these, significant documents isolated from everything else, disconnected, but can be highly important. When it comes to manufacturing, obviously warehousing and logistics generally goes hand in hand with that. All the knowledge that is in that warehousing and logistics team regarding lead times, product expiry dates, the relationships with your suppliers, what materials are available in the market, services, freight, outwork that you have with subcontractors. They're maintaining those relationships, and again, they could potentially be in its own separate silo. Your sales team. So obviously, most organizations will have some sales and marketing element. And again, they're out in the field promoting the organization, dealing with prospects, working with customers, upselling, cross-selling, doing all those good things. And again, they could be in their own separate silo of information. Your back office team, so that's dealing with your finance, your debtors, your creditors, banking, tax, those sort of things, potentially in their own silo. Different locations. So just because of your arrangement, you might have your raw materials situated in one location, your manufacturing, your plant, your equipment in other locations. Due to the nature of that, you might have information in different buckets there. You've also got your product and potentially your product and engineering teams, working on future product lines, R&D expenditure and alike. That might be in a potential separate silo. And then you've got things such as your factory maintenance and your assets being utilized and alike, and making sure they've got adequately serviced, understanding their cycle times. The machinery themselves can hold information that's important to understand the performance, or the cycle times and the like. Again, these are just examples of silos. I've gone through a few there, but samples or examples of silos that this is all important information. And in order to bring this all together, as this example would show, would be quite timely to put together, and the quality of that data might be a bit uncertain because of the disconnected nature of these data sets. So what we need to do to mitigate or overcome this is come up with a single source of truth. Get everyone in the organization on a single platform, singing from the same hymn sheet, no duplication of data. One record is being maintained and being, becoming that golden record to make sure, everyone within that, within your organization has the right information in their hands. This is the goal. This will ultimately enhance your organization's effectiveness to provide that real-time information to drive accurate decision-making from the people on the factory floor right to those in the management or C-suite level, just being able to use this information to drive future objectives and planning. So what we're here to talk about today is this single unified platform that we have available with the solution called MYOB Advanced. Now, MYOB is a well-renowned brand in Australia and New Zealand. Most of you would identify it with some of its, small business applications. MYOB has had a long history in the enterprise market, and their latest offering is called MYOB Advanced, which is a cloud application which has broad capabilities and quite in-depth functionality to address a number of industries. And today we're here to talk about manufacturing, but every industry will have different, there's horizontal functionality within most applications that cross many industries, and we'll cover a bit of this right now. So what is MYOB Advanced and why is it important to yourselves? So MYOB is a cloud solution. For those that are out there, I'm sure most people are familiar with cloud. It's a system that is hosted in data centers on your behalf and managed on your behalf. So getting away from on-premise applications or servers sitting in your offices or in storerooms and the like. This is all professionally managed by people that are experts in the industry. MYOB Advanced has been geared towards the small to mid-size enterprise. So it's designed around being highly cost efficient, best practices built in, while being highly configurable and tailorable around organizations and industries. It's hosted on enterprise infrastructure. So MYOB Advanced has partnered with Amazon Web Services, AWS, to host MYOB Advanced. That's a tight relationship, a strategic relationship MYOB has with Amazon. And from our experience, it's working very well at the moment. Amazon is a market leader when it comes to enterprise infrastructure. When we talk about cloud technology, obviously it's being hosted on your behalf, therefore your data is being housed off premise. There's always a concern of data sovereignty. So when it comes to MYOB Advanced data, it is all hosted onshore. The data centers are all located in Australia, both the productive systems and the disaster recovery platforms and data centers are all contained within in Australia. So when it comes to your intellectual property, all the sensitive information, it's always being secured onshore, never shipped offshore. The benefits of cloud is that it enables a mobile workforce. So regardless of where individuals are based, either like ourselves at the moment, working from home or in different locations around the globe, they can have access to the data through their a web-enabled device such as a laptop or PC, tablet or mobile phone. As long as that device has internet connectivity, you can have access to all the data that's available within MYOB Advanced across all the different areas of the business. The beauty of MYOB Advanced, it's been designed to be extendable. So, some areas of MYOB Advanced will be complemented by e-commerce solutions. So if you have e-commerce or you have a relationship with suppliers and customers which relies on EDI, for example, the platform has been geared up to be able to address those through the extendability of it, through customizations and ISVs, independent software vendors, to address a range of different requirements. The last thing around MYOB Advanced, it's constantly evolving. The good thing around cloud technology is that it's always up to date. You're always on the latest version of MYOB Advanced, therefore you're never falling behind like it may do with on-premise applications. So, you always, upgrades happen quite regularly. It's part of the consideration of a cloud application, is that you're constantly being updated. Material is being released as part of those upgrades to explain the extra features and functions, and they just come with, and then it's a choice for that organization to deploy that new capability. So why is this all important? I may have already covered some of these, but real-time information anywhere. So that's extremely important. The digital economy, the number of ways of explaining it, but especially with the pandemic and the like, having access from information from anywhere, being able to be highly adaptable in unusual situations, the MYOB Advanced can help you in those situations. Reduce IT overhead. So, all those silos I covered earlier, what we're doing is consolidating that all into a single silo. Therefore, you're only managing, a reduced number of systems to keep your business operational, business as usual. So, the overall cost can be reduced by implementing MYOB Advanced. You have the assurance, with MYOB, well-renowned brand, been in the market for a long time, Amazon Web Services, you have the assurance that you've got the best people in the market, the best techniques, making sure that the technology, the hardware, the infrastructure that the IT relies on is being maintained to the best ability, and the disaster recovery, and all those things that are required as part of maintaining IT systems are being done on your behalf. As part of being on a single platform, it just simplifies the organization. So when it comes to new starters within your organization, or just explaining process to your existing team, it just simplifies things. It gives people confidence to interact with the system, be part of the process, and just bring out a whole lot of new opportunity within the organization. Growth readiness, it's a highly scalable product. Users, deploying MYOB Advanced, you can be, as little as 2 to 3, 4, 5 users, right up to hundreds of users. And again, it just scales accordingly based on the number of people that you have in your team, but also when it comes to the types of capabilities that you need within your organization, it can scale with that. And staying modern. IT is an always evolving thing, and latest techniques and technology, and the beauty of being with MYOB Advanced, you will be staying modern all the time. So when it comes to MYOB Advanced and what it can do holistically, are all your core applications. So MYOB Advanced is an ERP application, enterprise resource planning application that has a suite of modules that are tightly integrated with one another. So to go through those, when we come to most organizations, we start with finance. So finance, making sure all the general ledger and financial reporting is taken care of, tax and alike. Then we have accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory management, customer relationship management and alike. So these are all tightly integrated, and it just continues. Sales, so that ties into customer relationship management, looking after your customer, but also bringing on net new opportunities. The flip side of that is handling your relationship with your suppliers, so procurement and handling those supply chains can be handled within MYOB Advanced. As part of that, you've also got to pay your staff. So we have the ability within MYOB Advanced to handle payroll as well, which is quite unique when it comes to enterprise resource planning in this space. Project accounting, field service. We also have construction capabilities. For those, this is quite typical, having multiple entities within a group structure. MYOB Advanced can handle that. Tying into employment, the payroll, have employee self-service. So, your team members being able to log on, ask for leave, requests, look at their schedule, put in their timesheets and the like. There's workforce capabilities, and there's a range of other things. So, MYOB Advanced has good breadth to cover a number of industries and depth of functionality that can complement what we're here to talk about today is manufacturing. So all of these, as I was saying, are tightly integrated modules that talk to one another to accomplish that single source of truth. So when it comes to manufacturing processes, there's a number of ways of how manufacturing is seen. This is, I guess, my interpretation of how it's seen and ties into most people that are out there. So you can have discrete manufacturing. So discrete manufacturing ties into effectively building unique products or solutions every time you go through a manufacturing process. Generally, you'll be building something in particular, but it's either highly configurable or highly can be engineered. That makes it quite unique. Therefore, the manufacturing process can be subtly different each time you go through that process. Other types of manufacturing processes are batch. So again, this is when you typically have a standard recipe or a bill of materials and you're building batches of units, can be tens, hundreds or thousands of units at a time. And it's a consistent workflow producing these units, raw material, operations, routes and the like, and they're consistent through the manufacturing process. The last manufacturing process is similar to batch, but it's called process manufacturing, where it's a continuous line. The volumes of the batch are quite large. The production line cycles can go over many days, or it can just be indefinite. And that can be called process manufacturing, which is quite a unique industry in its own right. So when it comes to, talking about these type of manufacturing processes and how it translates to ERP applications such as MYOB Advanced, we're talking workflows. So, when we're talking about discrete, we can have a workflow called configure to order. So you have a product that has a standard base, but then you can have a whole lot of alternative options to that, which you would work with the customer and define or design the arrangement of that based on a predetermined set of options. So that's configure to order that MYOB can handle. Engineer to order. So again, this is something a bit more unique. It broadens the ability to tailor the solution or the product to the customer's requirement. It ties to discrete again. And this is where engineers are involved. It's quite a bespoke product, but normally ties into the product line that you're working within, and it's part of a core workflow there. When it comes to batch, ties into either a make to order process. So when the demand comes from your customer, you react to manufacture that batch of products. Alternatively, it's a make to stock workflow where it's you are forecasting the demand or you've got minimum and maximum stock levels and the like, and you're manufacturing to those levels to keep a certain level up, and that makes sure that your lead time with your customers are maintained and fairly quick. When it comes to process manufacturing, we talk about in continuous flow. I won't delve into that too much because MYOB Advanced isn't suited for that industry. I'm highlighting it now because manufacturing is quite a broad industry. When it comes to process manufacturing, there are industries such as oil refineries, paper, cement, glass. Those are the type of industries that are typically continuous, and MYOB Advanced is unfortunately not suited for those industries. So I'll remove that from this slide, and these are the industries, or these are the manufacturing processes MYOB Advanced can handle beautifully. What can extend above that is ability to add other modules on top of this. So if you are a project-based or a job-based manufacturer, so this is when the engagement can run over a long period of time, manufacturing a whole range of different, products for your customer, you might need to encapsulate that into a project, and MYOB Advanced can handle that. So these workflows that I just talked about can, fit a number of industries within the Australian market. Food and beverage is definitely one of them. When it comes to food and beverage, when it comes to food safety and material end-to-end traceability, that's very important for those organizations. So, MYOB Advanced can handle that. When it comes to clothing, textile clothing and footwear, different colors, size, style combinations that are part of that, we can handle that with MYOB Advanced. Job-based industry, so that ties into that project umbrella or bucket that the manufacturing processes can go into. So, if you're part of civil or construction, subcontracting and alike, long-term engagements, contracts with, the necessary milestone billing and alike, we can handle that. Chemical, when it comes to chemical and pharmaceutical, quality assurance procedures are important. Document management, hazardous material, those are the considerations in those industries. Metal, engineer, metal and plastics, highly engineered products, which can go through changes, so deviations. So when the customer or something happens in the manufacturing process, which means change needs to happen, ability to handle that. Shop floor capture, so people on the shop floor, typing in their timesheets, capturing the materials they use at the shop level, we can handle that, and other considerations as well. We've also got the ability to handle machinery, which can be, handling sub-assemblies, multi-level bill of materials, outwork, releasing work to subcontractors, suppliers, and bringing that back in. Also, once the product is on the market or sold, the warranty and servicing considerations. So we've got the field service capability, that's all part of the solution as well. So when it comes to all this being encapsulated in the system, it provides a whole lot of manufacturing insights around the production workflow that bring forward, KPIs that you can now start defining and measuring against. Now, these are some of the KPIs that you can accomplish within MYOB. These are examples. As part of the implementation process with leverage technologies, we'll sit with you and understand what KPIs are suited for yourselves. What are the targets that you'll define? How would they be measured? A range of things. We would work with you on that. Once the production KPIs are in place and complemented with your typical, reports such as, what's your work in progress like, what is your on-time delivery like, and your schedules and alike, and your forecasting coming from sales or, your planning, that can be overlaid with, financial data, sales data, how your vendors are performing, your inventory performance and position, and how your resources, both mechanical, machinery, and your human resources are performing as well. So once all this data is in the single platform, MYOB Advanced, all these insights are available. The data is all being harmonized and can be connected to one another to bring through a whole lot of analytics that you may not currently have, or if you do have at the moment, might take a bit of time to bring it all together. So this is all brilliant. I'm definitely running over time, so I do need to push through. But when it comes to implementing systems such as MYOB Advanced, this is typically where we have a lot of questions from our prospects and understand, like, how do we get to this? Now, it comes down to what the status quo is, what you're currently working on, what your objectives are, timelines, budgets, and a range of things. So I don't want to simplify this too much, but I've just put it down into two methods. So we have the Big Bang approach, and this means that you have a system in place. It might be an on-premise application that is going end of maintenance, end of support, or a key staff member within your organization is moving on. Therefore, you're not sure if you can maintain it to the ability that you have done in the past. So in order to move to another solution such as MYOB Advanced, we need to achieve parity effectively. We need to have a like-for-like solution. Therefore, we have to go through this Big Bang approach, which is a waterfall implementation where we are making sure that every part of the organization has a match, or we have enhanced capabilities when it comes to the overall scope of the deployment. The alternative is a phased deployment. So this is more suitable for those organizations that are going into an ERP application for the first time. They might be in a lot of these silos, and that means that there's the opportunity to bring people into the big silo, the single source of truth, over a period of time. So we might bring on the back office and logistics first, then look at your sales and other teams, and then eventually get to your manufacturing process as the last thing, like building a foundation first and building out. And once you're confident with the solution with MYOB Advanced, would bring on the more complex parts of the organization. It's all around change management. Each organization has different considerations around that, and Leverage will be here to work with you on that. So when it comes to all these things, such as MYOB Advanced, the approach to implementations, the insights and whatnot, we're trying to set you up for success, ongoing success, perpetual success. And that's achieved by unifying your workforce, being future ready for any future objectives in the organization, or anything that comes from the market that you have to adapt to, having a solution that can be handle that. Holistic analytics, everything being on the single platform, being able to slice and dice that data, get the interpretation of the data that you need to make decisions. That's what MYOB Advanced can bring forward. Real-time KPIs, no delaying, as the production floor is releasing materials, issuing materials, completing goods, you're getting that real-time information at your fingertips as soon as you log in, which Dean will cover shortly. It's a powerful platform that, as I've explained, with its breadth and depth, that has a significant range of opportunity for businesses. And at Leverage, we're here to support you and make sure that the right set of capabilities are brought on at the right time. Scalable and adaptable, modern technology hosted on Amazon Web Services. So as your business evolves, we can make it tailor-fitted to your organization. Being a cloud application, it's always accessible. And again, it's always secure because of that relationship that Amazon and MYOB has. All right. So enough from me. What I'd like to do now is bring Dean across to present to you MYOB Advanced and its capabilities and a bit of a workflow. So over to you, Dean. Sorry, I ran over time, mate.
Thank you, James. It was expected. Please stop sharing your screen.
Okay, stopping now.
Right. So you should be seeing my screen now. Hopefully that is good. Thank you, James, once again. Very insightful. I'm going to take us through a little bit of a journey at a very high level today. There's a lot more detail behind things, of course. But, I guess the first point to understand is an extension of James's comment around the integration between the modules in MYOB Advanced. When you implement a system like MYOB Advanced, a lot of your accounting and financial transactions start to happen as a matter of course when you deliver your operational effort, which really streamlines reporting, as James said before, financial transactions and accuracy of all the data. So we're going to start today on a dashboard. This is a manufacturing dashboard. Dashboards in MYOB Advanced are very flexible. This one's been set up to give us a bit of a view of what planned orders we've got in the system, what in progress production orders we've got in the system, where those in progress production orders are up to in terms of the work centers or the operational steps that they're up to and when they're likely to start and likely to finish, and the quantity of items we're meant to be making. Can also give us a view of when a production order is in 2 manufacturing stages, because some of it was completed and that element has been made available to the next step in the process. I've also got a bit of a view of the production lines that I'm running here. This is very flexible, can be set up to suit your production process, and you can see which sales orders and production orders are planned to be made on which line at which date. So that can be quite useful because you can start to get a view of what's happening in your production facility and when items are going to be available. Finally, I've got a few KPI type tiles here, which are giving us organizational wide view of, in this case, our average scrap versus the last 30 days. So things are going pretty well. Our scrap rates are dropping. Having said that, we still have a significant quantity of scrapped items, which is a little bit of a concern, and also a bit of a KPI telling us what our current average work in progress value is. These KPIs could be any of those represented on your dashboard that James spoke about before. These are just the few that I've chosen. So in MYOB Advanced manufacturing, it really all starts from the demand in the system. Now, demand can be coming from quotes. It can be coming from transfers between warehouses in MYOB Advanced. It can be coming from sub-assemblies that you require to make the finished goods. It can be coming from forecasts that are created in MYOB Advanced, either based on data that's been entered from the sales team, or based on historical sales performance, or based on a combination of both. All these sources of demand enable us to create production orders, or initially sales orders, and then into production orders. So within the MYOB Advanced manufacturing process, we actually have 3 different types of product that we can make effectively. We have the configure to order type product, which is this ability to select multiple options. The sales team can do that on the quote, work through it with the customer, finish the selection, and then that sets the bill of materials and the routing or the recipe and the process steps that you're going to follow to make this product. We can also have an estimate type line item, which is much more a free form process, which we can use to create a quotation for the client. That estimate can then be converted into a sales order and then converted into a bill of materials and routing or recipe and process steps automatically, without you needing to manually re-enter any information. The final type of item which we'll focus on for the rest of the session is an item which has a defined bill of materials and routing, which have been set up to help you make that product time and time again. So I've just entered a sales order here. This particular sales order, I've already created some production orders. Very simple process. I've just created it off action production orders, and it's created those for me. Or alternatively, I could have used the materials requirement planning process to look at all of the types of demand in the system, including this sales order, and create production orders, purchase orders, and sales orders, and transfer orders rather, for all the production items that we're making, for all of the raw materials that we need to do so, and for any sub-assemblies that are required to enable that. So if we just drill in and have a little bit of a look at a production order in MYOB Advanced, this is a production order summary screen. It's telling us the current state of a production order. This is the sales order that it links to, if it is linked, the quantity to produce, and as a KPI, I've just reported here how many we've completed, in this case 0, and how many we've scrapped, in this case 50. I can also expand this panel on the side, and we can start to look at what a MYOB Advanced bill of materials looks like. Within MYOB Advanced, a bill of materials or a recipe has 2 elements. It has the recipe element, i.e. the materials that are going to be consumed and the quantities that are going to be consumed. In this particular recipe, I've got some cement, some powder, and some sand, but that could be anything that's in your inventory system. It also has routing or process steps, and in this particular bill of materials, I've got 2 process steps. Process step 10, which is mixing, and process step 20, which is packing. I have set the system so that it knows every time we make this product, it takes me 15 minutes to get ready, and we want to capture that cost. And every time I make 100 units of this, it takes an hour. I've also defined that I'm going to backflush my labor and backflush my raw materials. Basically, what that means is when we move this production order through these operations or production steps, we're going to assume that the labor and raw materials that we said we were going to use has actually been used. This is great if you're running a Kanban type system or a pull type system in your organization and you don't want to capture on the shop floor transactions. Alternatively, you can, as we'll see a little bit later on, capture on the shop floor material and labor issues so that you've got more accurate data. Further to the bill of materials and routing concept, we can have some production steps which come out on the production order. In this particular system, I've just got some simple instructions for the shop floor to follow. We can include tools. Tools are things which wear out. They enable you to include a small amount of cost to recover against the purchase of, in this case, of a mixing blade. That will go to a particular general ledger account so that when it comes time to buy a new mixing blade, you've built up a little bit of a war chest. We can have overheads which are automatically calculated and accrued into the cost of making these goods. In this case, I've just got some labor overhead, which is variable by the amount of hours in this particular production, in this particular bill of material. And finally, if you have an outside processing or an outsourcing activity, we can define a routing step as outsourcing. We can set the system up such that you can pass any inventory that is required from your warehouse and any work in progress that you might have created to date on this production order to an external vendor or an external supplier, and then receive the goods back in and create the receiving transactions, the purchase order transactions, and the accounts payable billing transactions all off the back of that. The cost will come home to any production order that's related to this. So if I just jump back to my summary page and then look at my operational view, if you remember, this particular production order had 2 steps, step 10 and step 20. And what we can see from this operational view is that step 10 has been completed. We were meant to start it on the 28th of June, but we actually started it yesterday. We were meant to have a planned value of $839.38, but the actual cost was $894, so we've got a cost variance. And we were 20 days early when we completed it. Now, this is a flexible reporting structure, so we can have anything that makes sense for your organization on a screen like this. We can also see that Operation 20 is yet to be started. We don't have an actual start date. And currently, we've got a variance of minus $460 because we've not actually got a current cost because we've not started this step. So we can get a real good view of the production order status when we look at it like this. So if we actually drill down into the production order itself, just to have a look at the anatomy of a production order in MYOB Advanced, it has a type and a number which is created by the system, the inventory item that we're making, the quantity that we're producing of that inventory item, which warehouse we might be making it in. So you might have 2 production facilities. Each production facility might be operating, making the same product, but they might be making it on slightly different equipment. They might be making it on with a slightly different process, and we can accommodate all of those things. We also have our planned constraint date or finish date. In this particular circumstance, this date was picked from the sales order that the production order was created from. We've got a scheduling method to finish on. So when we run our advanced planning and scheduling process, the system will look at this constraint date, and it will look at the dispatch priority and attempt to arrange the production orders to maximize your ability to meet the target date, given everything else that's happening in those production process steps. We can always see from a production point of view which sales orders created them, which bills of materials, and which revisions were used on bills of materials. So that bill of material or recipe, we can control with an engineering control process to make sure that if there is change, that it's well documented, the reason for the change is documented, and it's been approved. We can see all the transactions that have occurred against this and all the status changes, and you can see some move transactions and material issue transactions that have happened here, and the original creation transaction. But most interestingly, we can see the attributes that are happening that are being recorded. So we can record quality attributes, which we'll look at a little bit further down the track. But the interesting thing, or the good thing about MYOB Advanced Manufacturing, is we can get a summary of the current state. So you can see on the left here, I've got my planned costs from each type of cost base, so machine, labor, material, tools, etc. And on the right, I've got the actuals and my current variance. So you can get a very good understanding of exactly where this production order is up to from a cost perspective, and we can see our current WIP sitting there. In the circumstances that we're using MRP, or Materials Requirements Planning, to manage our raw materials and sub-assemblies and transfers for the production process, we can run the MRP process, and it will calculate the raw materials it needs, set action dates based on the lead times assigned to that inventory item and supplier, and link those back to the related document, which in this case is a production order. And it's as simple as selecting those that you want to act on and deciding to buy them. Or if they're sub-assemblies, you would manufacture them. It would create additional production orders. Or if they're transfers, because it's in another warehouse of yours and you need to transfer the items from another warehouse in order to meet this demand, you can initiate that from this screen quickly and easily. In the circumstance that your inventory is not available, or the system evaluates that you no longer need it, we have an exceptions process within the MRP, or Materials Requirements Planning. That exceptions process quite simply attempts to expedite or slow down the supply of raw materials and production and sub-assemblies in order to make sure that you're not getting product ahead of time or getting product too late. In this particular example, I've got an expedite instruction, and it links to a particular purchase order, which I can go and look at. That instruction would be a signal to your purchasing staff to try and talk to the supplier to see if we can bring this forward, because we require that on the 10th on today, but it's currently due for delivery on the 14th, which obviously means that will push us back, and we'll likely be late with the production order that's required for. In terms of shop floor data capture, my advanced shop floor data capture system is really easy. It can run on an iPad, a desktop, even a mobile phone. In this particular instance, I've logged in and I'm currently clocked on to a particular production job, production order 933, with a particular operation. And if I'm to finish this job, I can just say that I finished one unit, and I clock out of it. And that will create all of the transactions associated with my time being booked to the job and the fact that I've finished one inventory item. Now that hasn't hit the job yet, or the production order. It hasn't been approved. There's an approval process that you would run through to make sure that everything was being managed appropriately. So in the circumstance when you need to issue raw material to a job, specific raw material, which is especially important if you're in the food industry or in any other industry where lot serial and batch control with expiry is required. We will create a materials issue and allocate a particular serial number. Now that could be done by the team on the shop floor, or it could be done by the production management staff, and we literally just issue a particular piece of inventory and the serial number that we've issued. If that serial number is associated with an expiry date, that's also possible to issue. We can also make moves. Moves within MYOB Advanced are a simple process of taking a production order from a manufacturing process step to the next manufacturing process step, or if it's the last move in the cycle, in putting that inventory into your stock and clearing your WIP out. Finally, as we're doing those moves, we can create and capture quality metrics. In this particular circumstance, I've got an inspection completion date, which I'm capturing at each operation, an inspected by, and a viscosity measurement, but these could be any metrics that you want to capture. So you can see these values here. These are being created yesterday when I did this production move, and that enables you to capture that information and then report on that information later on, and it's permanently connected to the batch, which connects back to this production order number 944. We can have as many or as few of these quality attributes as you want, or we can have the mandatory or non-mandatory. And all of this is linked back to the manufacturing dashboard, which gives us an overall view of where your manufacturing team is up to delivering product. And for instance, if a client rang up about a product, you would be able to look up the production order and say, okay, production order number 946 is expected for completion approximately 4:30 p.m. on the 14th. So that, in a very quick high-level nutshell, is MYOB Advanced Manufacturing. There's a lot more to it. I encourage you to ask any questions so that we can jump in and answer them. But if there are no questions, I'll hand back to James.
Well, thanks, Dean, for going through that. It's a very powerful application. I know there's much more that we could cover today, but we've only got the short amount of time. So I guess for those who are on the call, we don't have any questions on the panel, which is fine. But this session will be recorded and posted on YouTube. So if there are any future further questions, feel free to contact us either via email or on our phone. We'll be happy to address that and go through what MYOB Advanced with manufacturing means for your organization. So thanks for your time this morning. I appreciate everyone's time is valuable, and I hope that was useful for you today. And we hope we hear from you shortly. All good. Well, thanks, guys. Have a good day.